Kim,
Uh-huh.
do you have your phone?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Click on this link and tell me what happens, please.
I just posted to the YouTube channel to please hold for a new link for the new feed.
Do you see anything?
It's asking me to sign into Google.
Oh, damn. That sucks.
So if you can get a public page up.
It's already up. I'm trying to make sure before I send to everyone that it's working. I just sent it to Kim. Is it yellow?
No. It's ads and it's really pissing me off. Let's see. That's a mess.
Hold on, let me try another link.
I'm trying it again. Let's see.
Hold on, let me send you this one.
Okay. Okay, now it's walking through getting the YouTube Studio app. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Let's try this. Here we go. Green screen.
Right.
That one came up.
Turn that off. Sorry.
You don't have to.
Live.
I need you to share that link with Seeker Burger.
When you say share the secret, or what do you mean?
Hello. Thanks everyone for your patience. We are just getting started. Let's see.
Yes.
All right, we're live. Sorry for the delay. We had some fun with Wi-Fi and YouTube. Okay. Hopefully they can hear us. Here we go. All right, test that out again. So I couldn't hear.
No sound?
I think we're good now.
Jason, you got sound now? I hope you do. Can't hear anything. Let's see. Jolene is working on the sound, so we will see what happens, folks.
It shows that it's working. Redo, yes, no sound. That could have came in after. So
Yes, good now. Okay,
great.
we're good on sound. All right,
I'm gonna try to log in.
we'll get going.
I mean, we've got 14 people logged in. I would get started in 2 minutes.
All right. You're 2 minutes out, folks. Has anybody opened wine and/or mezcal yet? Are you willing to share with that person?
Has everyone read their prep list?
Has everybody read the prep list, the recipe? If you have your chicken, go ahead, pull it out, let it start getting to room temp. It's going to be the first thing that we're working on here tonight. So focus on that, lining everything up. If you're missing anything, call the number that's not at the bottom, and we'll get something to you. I apologize.
Did you wake it up?
Yeah, it's not very good.
It's not better.
That's better than. If anybody saw the 1980 film with Michael Keaton, where he works at a car plant, I believe in Detroit, there's a famous scene where they're counting cars and they go up and the guy puts his hand through a window that doesn't exist and Michael Keaton goes, safety glass? It's literally one of my favorite things in the world.
Glad I could recreate that for you.
How many people we got in the building?
I think we're gonna get started. There are
19.
19 people.
Let's get started. All right. So if you guys have your recipe card that was made, your pamphlet, we're going to kind of go through all the ingredients. We're going to put some away so we can focus on the chicken for now, but make sure we have everything. So you should have some hard-boiled eggs. This is for the salad section of it. Hard-boiled eggs, your salad dressing, olives, and seeds. So the pumpkin and sunflower seeds are already mixed together for you. And then your lovely bag of Desert Bloom greens. Now, these are put together by Desert Bloom Farms, which is out on the way to Copa. Claudia is the farmer. She does a lot of work with restaurants here in town, CSA boxes. If you guys haven't had the chance, please look them up. They've been supplying us with amazing ingredients for quite a while. So that's going to be your whole salad mix for today. So we're going to get that one out of the way. Next is the pilaf setup. So you should have some chicken stock. You should have a bag with butter and onions in it. Some Carolina gold rice. Now, if you see that and you're wondering what's going on, Carolina gold rice is actually an heirloom grain here in the U.S. If you're trying to figure out what heirloom means, whenever we talk about heritage or heirloom, this refers to ingredients that were pre the Industrial Revolution. So this is how people farmed during the colonial days, up until you saw, everything kind of changed to that factory farming kind of idea. Then you should have some thin dried noodles, kind of similar to vermicelli, but real small, thin. And then you're going to have 2 cups of herbs. I know in the packet it said a bag, but it's a cup of fresh herbs. There should be some that has mint in it with chives, and then some with tarragon and parsley, a little bit more chive in there. So that's going to be all for the peel off for later. Okay, now for your bread, you should everybody should have gotten a baguette. This is coming from Delice Gourmand. They're on Sahara and Valley View. Great French couple that does a lot of different baguettes, country breads, pastries. They've supplied a lot of different restaurants here in town. So that's who we source it from this week. They do a really great job baking every day also. So you should have your bread. You should have some radishes that we sliced for you. Some fleur de sal, which is a French sea salt. And then some grass-fed butter. Now you make sure to sit this out for a little bit, let it temper so it softens. Later on, this is just going to be a nice little setup for bread, butter, salt, and radishes, which I think is a pretty solid snack, especially when you're thinking about, sitting outside, Provence maybe, some rosé, a little bit of baguette and butter. So we'll put that one to the side for you guys. And finally, we have our chicken kit. So you're going to have your organic Mary's chicken. These are about a 3 to 3.5 pound bird, which is perfect for, again, like we said, 2 to 4 people to create a nice little meal for 4 people to sit together, keep the numbers small nowadays, or for 2 people to have leftovers and spend the next day eating chicken salad or anything. You're going to see a bag of herbs. There should be sage, parsley, and some tarragon nestled in there. This is going to be for the bird as well. You'll see a little spice pack, pink peppercorn, coriander, lots of different spices in here. You have a deli of flour, fine salt, egg whites, and then you have a little cup with 3 eggs. The eggs also come from Desert Bloom. This is going to be for your egg wash later. And in that cup, there should be a piece of twine. This is what we're going to tie the bird up with. So go ahead and set that piece of twine with your bird, keep it together. And for some of you, you added on the foie gras option. Very classy for you. This is a 3-ounce portion of foie, which, again, this is from Hudson Valley in New York. It's in a large duck liver, very rich, very fatty, decadent, originally done with goose liver. And although we think often with French in foie gras, this is something that goes way back to Hebrew days in Egypt as something that they started eating and developing. So beautiful piece. And then some of you added on the chicken stock kit. So at the end, when we finish cooking the chicken, we're going to show you how to break it down, and then we're going to use the carcass to go with some spices and herbs, a baggie of vegetables, what we call mirepoix, so celery, carrots, and onions are kind of a staple of a lot of French cuisine, and then a little baggie of chicken feet. The chicken feet you can get at Asian markets, you can get at Whole Foods. They add a lot of gelatin, a lot of body to stocks, so you get more of that mouth feel, you get a lot more out of it than if you're just using chicken bones. If you can't do chicken feet, it's a weird idea to you. You can get beef bones, have tons of collagen in them, which is great, especially younger ones, and then just roast them off a little bit. So that kit is also in there. And then some of you got the 4-ounce round of Mocha Rouge. This is a Colorado cheese, but it's made similar in a French style as a triple cream brie. So again, that was a really fun add-on for some of you. And then lastly, a few of you got the Shea Winery Cabernet. Now, my family, on my mom's side, my great-grandfather Leon, great-grandmother Marie, they came over to the U.S. in 1904 and 1905, and they settled in Alameda in the Bay Area of California. So this dinner altogether is kind of to represent their heritage of France, but also for me, the family growing up in California, with little bits of inspiration from my grandmother, from a different side of the family, that everybody kind of like influenced. So when you talk about like the heritage dinner, this is really about them and celebrating Bastille Day, which is a French holiday celebrating the not like French independence, but it actually was the assault on a prison that held guns, ammunition. It was a fort, but it was called the Bastille. So today we're celebrating that. So we're going to give a cheers to the French, cheers to my family. And so as we go through cooking this, we'll talk a little bit about that and where the influence comes from. Now, the family name is Shea. They are not related to us, but same family name and originating from France. So we wanted to share their work as well, right? So we're going to clear off the foie, the veg. So the chicken, perfectly fine if you weren't able to do it tonight if you saw the instructions. But you usually want to pull this out about 45 minutes to an hour before you want to cook chicken. You know, typically people are terrified because they've heard a lot of horror stories about people getting sick, salmonella poison, everything. So the big thing they always want to do is have chicken be as cold as possible, and then they want to cook it to a point where they've killed it a second time. It's like a zombie land thing of like, you got to keep killing it, and then you won't be sick. And then everybody wonders why they have either rubbery chicken or dry. So tonight we're going to talk about a few tips to make sure that doesn't happen. But the reason we want it to come up to temp is that it's going to cook faster. It's going to cook more evenly. And the juices are just going to move throughout the body just a little bit better. So just something to always remember in the future. If you didn't do it tonight, that's fine, just for the future. So what we have is we're doing a salt dough wrap. So this is a technique, and a lot of times you see salt crust, which is just a high mix of salt to water that creates a shell. This, we're using flour, egg whites to create a dough to wrap it in. This is not something you want to eat, so don't take bites and then be pissed off because it was too salty. All right. This is really to encase the bird, to help kind of almost steam it on the inside as it cooks in the oven. It's going to add flavor. It's going to perfume it with the spices that we're going to add, and really protect this thing as it cooks nice and even. It's a really beautiful way to do things. It's not very hard. A lot of these French things that you hear of aren't hard. It just takes a couple times of trying it out yourself while you're at home. And I think especially now, this is a beautiful time to be trying those things out. So what I want you to do is get ahead of the game. We have our 3 eggs. We're going to go ahead and crack those into the deli that they came in. Whisk them up. You want to make sure they're really incorporated so you get all that yolk and egg white to go evenly over your dough while you're cooking. If you need to, you can thin it out a little bit with water. It doesn't get so rich and stuff. That's typically when you're doing like pies and covering it. But for this, we wanted to use as a seal for the dough around the bird. So we want to keep it very yolky, very egg white, to almost be that glue to keep our dough together, right? So we're gonna have that prepped and ready for us. You're gonna have your baggie of herbs. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up the chicken first. So she's ready to go when we get the dough ready. So I want you to have your twine. I want you to have your bag of herbs. And then if you need a pair of scissors, go ahead and grab that. So what we're doing is we're gonna season and stuff the bird a little bit. And then we're gonna truss it. Truss it is tying it with this butcher's twine, this string. This is going to keep the bird together, so it has a nice, beautiful, uniform shape. It's a little easier to wrap the dough, but it's going to cook more evenly, and it's going to come out just a lot juicier all around. So you can bring these out. Again, beautiful tarragon, parsley, sage. Always great to use fresh herbs, but dry herbs always have their purpose too. So normally you'd really work on seasoning your birds, but since we have the salt dough, we're only going to worry about the inside for right now, and we're just going to do light salt inside the cavity. Right. So if you got a little bit of salt at home, go ahead and use it now. If you don't, I don't know what you're cooking with, but it's a terrible idea. You need to get some help. So we're only going to take half of our herbs. So we're going to take out some of the tarragon, some of the sage, and the parsley, all right? And then I want you to blend that all together and stuff it inside the bird.
Maybe slow down a little bit and just read by just really quick what you just did. This people just joined in.
Okay. All right, so if you guys just joined in, we went through our box to get all the ingredients out, go through the list. We're gonna go through it again as we cook everything, so don't worry, we're not getting too far ahead of you. Right now we have the bird, flour, fine salt, the 3 eggs that we mixed up to make an egg wash. There should have been a piece of string hiding in there. More egg whites, this is gonna be part of the salt dough, and then a little container of coriander, pink peppercorns, and some bay leaves and other spices. And then we had a bag of fresh herbs, sage, parsley, and tarragon. There also, I forgot, there should be a lemon hiding around in your box somewhere. Right? I want you guys to find that. And you don't have to cut it completely in half, but just go ahead and make an incision. And then as you took half those herbs from before and stuffed them inside, all right, with a little bit of salt, go ahead, take that opening, squeeze it inside the bird. But it's good to kind of leave the lemon whole because this is going to help keep that uniform body. So you're going to go ahead and stuff it in there. Make sure it's nice and deep. This may have a lot of sexual overtones to it, undertones, all sorts of tones to it. That's most of my cooking, so I don't apologize. So we have the herbs, the lemon, and salt inside. Now I'm going to show you guys about trussing this. So you're going to take your piece of string, and again, trussing is all about having trust in someone. So you want to tie them up. You want to keep the bird nice and close together for even cooking, and it'll be much juicier than normal. So what you're going to do is you're going to find the middle point of your string, all right? So find the middle point of your string, all right? And you're going to take that right to the tail and go underneath, all right? And then I just want you to lay your string across. So, almost lost that bird. So it should be right underneath the butt there, all right? And what you're going to do, I want you to go ahead and take the wings, and you're going to tuck them underneath. So kind of like you're putting your hands behind your head. You know, chicken's having like a day at the beach, relaxing. If you have to kind of pop those joints like a chiropractor, go ahead. Make sure they stay in place. So you should see she looks nice and relaxed, ready to tan. All right, so we got our piece of string right underneath the butt. Bring her up. Now, I'm going to try and do this so you can see it. I'm going to do it kind of backwards for me. But you're going to come across, all right? See how it squeezes together? Kind of like a marionette. All right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to swing under one and then swing under the other. So you should see kind of a figure 8 created. And so when you pull, the legs should come together. All right, do that one more time. Release. And so you take it apart. So string under the butt and legs just a little bit. And then come up. We're going to go across. And then we're going to loop under one leg and then loop under the other. So we create a figure 8 and bring them together. And at this point, you want to bring that string right between the crease. So like what would be the back of your knee, all right? You're gonna bring it right across there and then across the body, right alongside the side boob, all right? Same thing over here, all right? Then we're gonna come up, we're gonna tie it. We're gonna go ahead and put that through 1, 2, 3 times. Now what this does is when we pull the string, it's gonna help hold the tension. That way it doesn't pull apart when we try to put the knot in. So squeeze that together, see how it comes together on it, all right? So it should be nice and tight, touching, all right? And then go ahead and then just tie off that knot.
Can you spin it around?
So you should see it should come, again, right by the side boob, up to the neck, tie a knot. We're just gonna cut that string off. Before you cut it though, to make sure you got it nice and tight, the important thing that was always taught to me is that the bird should feel like it's on a swing, all right? So it's nice and safe. So that's when you know you got the string holding on tight and it's got the legs held together. And you snip it off. All right. So now, we're not gonna worry too much about these falling off, but we're just gonna go ahead and pick some of our herbs to lose the stems. You're probably not gonna need all these herbs. In fact, probably gave you way more than you really need, but it's always good to have around. You guys can add them to other dishes. So we're gonna take some of the parsley, some of the sage, some of the tarragon. These are all herbs that work really well with chicken, especially tarragon. It's got that beautiful like licoricey, anise kind of flavor to it. Sage is so robust, so it's great in the wintertime to go much higher, but I think it really works anytime with it. We're just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn that for you. So we're gonna lay some of these herbs on there and just let the flesh kind of hold it. Now what this is going to do is it's going to clothe the bird, so when we put a dough on it later, that these herbs are nice and tucked up to the body and really begin to infuse on the bird as we cook it. I'm just going to add a little bit more parsley into my scheme. Okay. So this is how your guys' bird should look right now. I'll bring it up closer for you. So it should be tied nice and tight with a string going through the leg, right along the side to the neck. We should have some herbs, salt, and lemon shoved inside the cavity, and then a nice little blouse of herbs laid on top, all right? Again, if you guys have any questions or you need me to slow down, feel free to holler. And we'll try and do our best to make sure everybody knows what's going on. So that's our bird right there. So now we're gonna kind of deal with the bird. Gonna give, for right now, gonna wash up my hands before we go on to the dough. All right. Now, the next part of this, you're going to want to move to your stovetop for that small fry pan that we talked about. I got this little burner here. So I am in a home kitchen cooking all this, so you guys don't have to feel like none of my stuff turns out right, because you obviously have a way better stove and oven than me. I am using a camp burner. Don't worry though, I'm a trained professional. I'm not likely to burn down the house, but that's why I use a friend's house. So go ahead, put the small fry pan on, get it nice and warm. A good high heat is going to be good for this. And then I want you to find your little deli of spices. Again, like I said, you're going to find like a whole array of things in here. Some black peppercorn, white peppercorn, pink peppercorn, bay leaves, juniper berry, a little bit of chili. I'm a big fan of spices. I think they're so aromatic, beautiful. They really change the flavor of a lot of things. And something like chicken is so universal that you can do a lot of different things to it. So as we heat up this pan, I want you guys to pour the spices in. Right? Give it a little shake so it flattens out. And what we're doing is we're toasting the spices. Now this is super important because you want to grab all the flavor out of them as possible. So a little toast on dry herbs and spices is going to activate them and is going to help bring them out. But you want to be careful, you don't want to burn them. So we put them on the heat. We're going to move them every once in a while. Little shake. Now, fun story, when everybody's at home trying to like toss something in the pan, the first time I had to do that in a restaurant was like a pan about this big filled with rice and shrimp. And my boss said, flip the pan. And I was like, I'm not that great at it. And he goes, do it. So I did it. And I flung the rice and shrimp all over the wall. And he told me to clean it and do it again. So don't be scared. We all screw up. We all start somewhere. If you can't hear it in the mic, probably not. You can hear little pops. So we're going to give it a move around. You see a little bit of smoke. Pull it off the flame. So the residual heat from the pan is going to keep toasting it for you. All right. But if you start to really get it in your nose, all the spices, if it starts to make you sneeze a little bit, if you feel it in your throat, all right, like you just inhaled a big hit of something, which is now legal. That's when like everything's getting active. So you want to give it that chance to toast. So keep it moving. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking to smell it. You're looking to feel it, in your throat. Now, depending on the heat that you're comfortable with, this could take a minute. It could take 3. It's all about what you're comfortable with and what your experience is and kind of what your stovetop is. Again, restaurant stovetops burn a lot hotter. Same with our ovens. They work a lot smoother than home ones. So cooking times are all kind of relative. So it's why you guys need to kind of really play in your own kitchens and pay attention. So you kind of create your relationship with your own equipment. So now we really hear it going, kind of that rice crispy kind of sound. So we'll turn off our heat. All right. So I put on there, if you guys have a food processor, that's awesome. If you don't, it's going to be okay. What we're trying to do is we're going to mix the salt, dough, and everything together. And the food processor is going to help break up a little bit of those spices. If you don't have one, it's perfectly fine. Lay your spices out on like a countertop or a cutting board, and then use a rolling pin to just crush them lightly. All right. You want to be careful not to go too crazy because everything's going to disappear on you. But that's what you want to do. But since I have a food processor, we're going to move right into there. Jolene's over here scared about her beautiful butcher block top. And then you guys can go ahead and get rid of this hair. All right, so in the food processor, we're going to go ahead and add the flour. Now this is going to be...
The recipe says half spices. Is it all?
What?
The recipe says half spices, or are you using all of it?
The recipe does say half the spices. I'm gonna be honest, I wrote this recipe at like midnight, and I don't always remember my own thing. If you put all the spices in, it's fine. Sometimes it's just nice to like reserve some of them and put them inside the bird. But we totally went a whole different ass backwards way. It's not gonna hurt anything. Just when you have those spices inside your bird, it's gonna, flavors change, things change. It's fun to play around with. So this go around, we're going no spices on the inside. All right. So we got all of our spices in, all of our flour, minus a handful that we're going to go ahead and we're wipe our surface off here. You're going to want to reserve just the one handful. It's going to help you work your dough once it comes out of the food processor or out of your mixing bowl. All right. So all of our salt is in, our spices. We got a handful of flour on the side here. Now, the next thing you're going to need is your egg whites, but we're going to hold up on that. We're going to give everything a little pulse to give a little bit of time for the spices to break up. We're just going to go in jumps. All right. Now, one long one. Now, you're not looking for the spices to be like a fine powder, so it's perfectly fine. And we want them to, really permeate everything. So we just want to break them down. But the more you break them down to a powder, the more they're just kind of work into the whole dough and disappear. So I want just, nice pieces left. We're going to pop that off, and now we're going to add our egg whites. And again, this is going to be a little pulse. Kind of bring the dough together. It's only going to work itself so far, but we just want to get it started in here. If at home you're doing it all in a mixing bowl with a fork, it's perfectly fine. Get it all mixed in the bowl. It's going to start clumping together.
You put all the salt in, right?
Yeah. All the salt is it. All right, so we got a little bit of flour there. So you can see there's still like some loose flour, but it's starting to clump up into a dough. All right. We're going to work this out onto our surface. So in reference to our heritage dinner, in 1904, my great-grandfather Leon comes over from the Gap area of France, so that's southeastern France. He comes over in 1904. His wife Marie comes over in 1905, and they settle in Alameda. Alameda is like this tiny little island in the San Francisco Bay Area. But they come, great-grandfather starts working at a French laundromat in the city. And then after that, not long later, more family comes over. So on my mom's side with her father, my grandpa Ernie, which is going to be reference to the salad that we make later, he was the youngest of 12 siblings. That's ridiculous. I have 2 kids. I have no idea. Unless I have a farm where that all makes sense in my life, not happening. But yeah, 12 children. I really just remember a handful of them. Mostly my great Uncle Polly, my great Aunt Patty, and my grandfather, of course. All were very interesting as I talked to my mother about it. So we're going to start gathering that dough together. All right. Go ahead and start kneading it. Make sure it doesn't fall off the edge. Now you're probably going to need a little bit of water for this all, but we're going to slowly work this together. And then we're going to create a little well. All right. So just make a little cavity, little section right there. My wonderful assistant, Jolene, is off to the side here. And you just want to go in little bits with this because you don't want to go too wet and then not have any flour to come back with it. Right? So that, I talked to my mother quite a bit, especially today, about the family, trying to remember a few things. And it was funny because there wasn't a lot that she even remembered. It was an interesting kind of immigrant family coming to the U.S., trying to assimilate the best they could. When she took French lessons in school, my grandfather wasn't able to help her out because he'd kind of lost it all. And she told me stories of great uncle who wasn't big on hearing French in the house, and that was really a time when they were trying their best to just assimilate into American life. And it's interesting to me because now I look back and think about that family and immigrants that come to our country and how much like knowledge, right? Things they brought from their homelands, what they grew up with, and how that could better my life, better my experience with my kids, better my cooking. So it's kind of like interesting, it's kind of a wish to understand so much more of that. So this has kind of been an interesting project for me to kind of start that out. I know my mom and her cousin have looked into the family more and more to kind of see where it all comes from. All right, so I just add a little bit more water. Again, like making any dough, this is about building a relationship of understanding moisture content, the feel of the dough, and it affects where you are at any given time. So if you're in a humid climate, the water ratio will change. In a very dry climate, you might need more. And you don't have to worry about overworking this. It's a salt dough, so it's meant to be the cavity of something. It's not meant to be a vehicle to eat anything. So you're not gonna overdo it. You're not gonna get too chewy. The worst that you could do is work it too long and then it's gonna dry out. But then we can just repair it. A little bit of flour and water anytime. So you're gonna start to see the skin of it get a little bit smoother as you bring it together. Got any excess dough around there, any excess flour, bring it together. All right, now we're gonna save part of this dough. We're just gonna cut off a section, all right, to create our base. So the biggest piece we're gonna save to create the canopy of it. We're gonna take this smaller bit and hold it.
So just a little less than that.
Yeah, about like a third. A third of the dough is gonna be used to create the base. So if you feel like you're starting to get that nice smooth dough, go ahead and grab your rolling pin. Move these herbs. All right, we got our rolling pin. We're gonna start rolling this out. You want it to be about 1/4 of an inch. If you're wondering what that was, that's me guessing. So go ahead and roll out. You want a nice round shape to kind of get the bird on top of. All right, but it doesn't have to be perfect because we're gonna trim it. So don't worry about making the perfect circle. This isn't Chris Decker or Vincent Rotolo making amazing pies.
Oh, Justin Mason's watching, so tell her hello.
So apparently my
She's
brother
waving at you.
and sister-in-law have my daughter Mason Shea Hall. So we took my mother's maiden name for her middle name, is at home watching. She's 1.5 years old. And she is amazing, but also a terror. But how you doing, babe? So kind of shape the dough. Take a look at your chicken, right? You want to make sure that wherever the wing is going to sit, you still have about 1.5 inches to kind of go around. Now, when I point at my finger, which is kind of a wobbly finger, the rings on your finger, the ring lines, that distance universally is about 1 inch on everybody. So if you're sitting with a friend right now or a loved one, match your fingers, the rings are going to be pretty damn close. So that's about 1 inch on everyone. So in the kitchen, a lot of times using the back of the blade of the knife, the spine, plates, anything like that, is how we're able to measure things without having a constant ruler around.
Pro tip. We call that a pro tip.
Pro tip.
You're gonna have to test that bottle of wine too. Okay.
All right, so we got the base rolled out. Now you're gonna want to move this to a baking sheet. I got a silk pad on here. You can use wax paper or you can use nothing. Because again, the salt dough is not gonna be something to worry about. It's just a little easier for you to take off if it ends up sticking. But what I want you to do is I want you to take a large knife because this dough is going to adhere a little bit, right? So go ahead and just chisel around it. Tap, tap, taparoo. We're going to go right onto our baking sheet. Now, the reason we're doing this is because we're about to put the chicken on it. And if you did it with the chicken on it and then later you have to move it, there's going to be a lot of moisture. It's going to be a lot heavier. And you have a lot more risk of the chicken falling straight through the dough. So, all right. Here, Tony, can you show it one more time?
No.
Thickness around there. Thank you. All right, so got that right there. Now, so the eggs that we mixed up earlier, the 3 eggs that you saw whole, we are going to use them as our egg wash, as our binder. Now, if you don't have a pastry brush, which a lot of people don't, or you have a crappy one, using a paper towel, you know, if you need to snip it a little bit or just kind of like bind it up. This is good enough to kind of soak that up and brush it around. Only in these instances. It's not for like beautiful pie work or anything. This is purely for, I'm going to glue things to a table like a kindergartner. So that's what we're going for. Okay. Yeah, if this is what your friend has and gives you, go ahead and go with the paper towel, folks. You're missing out on it. Okay, so we're just going to cover that whole base, right?
I just use my hands.
Right. Then go ahead and take your chicken. Stay hanging out at the beach. All right.
Get a close up this.
So you take a look at it. You want space all the way around, right? About an inch, inch and a half. So if you got to turn the bird, right, make sure that the wings are not sitting on the edge, so you got room to attach the rest of the dough. All right. We're going to move that off to the side. And now we're going to finish with our larger piece of dough. Now, I want you to trim off just a section, right? About the size of a golf ball, a little bigger. That is going to be, if we need to fix any repairs, there's cracks in the dough, we can help fill that in. Right? Let's roll this out. We want to go just a little bit thicker on this than we do the base. Again, it's going to sit on top, so when the moisture of the bird begins to steam and push through, if there's any kind of like thin spots, it's going to cause a break. And we're going to lose the point of what this whole soft dough is. Right? So we went about 1/4 of an inch before. You want to go just a little bit more than that. Wouldn't quite say, you know, 1/2 inch, but that'll be fine. Go ahead and flip the dough every once in a while. This is going to help from it sticking too much to the table, but it's also going to help keeping from cracks and thin spots from creating. and you can get it a little bit more even.
I think Janice is coming over for him.
Apparently, we might have a watcher, a gawker, a lawyer who's tracking us down to come have dinner. In the time of COVID, these underground at-home film dinners become special.
Start creeping around the back door.
You start smelling something good outside, you need to make friends with those people. Those are going to be your quarantine buddies. It's important that you find somebody that's a chef who can butcher items, somebody that has something to do with the alcohol industry. Should always have one kind of weird prepper friend just in case. And then, just some friends that are good to drink with. All right. If you feel like the dough is starting to break apart, all right, go ahead, pull it in and overlap it and gently kind of work that area. Flip again if you have to, bring this whole thing together and start all over. Again, the worst thing that's going to happen, you're going to start to dry out, get some cracks. If you got a little bit of flour at home, water, we can go ahead and fix those. We can still pick it up. So, we got our chicken. We got our base made. We got herbs on top. If those fell off, go ahead, reapply.
Coming in.
And then we just want to kind of gently take a look, right? Use your whole arm to kind of pick the dough up and make sure that we get good coverage, right? If we think like we're going to get good coverage, go ahead, put it down. We're going to use our makeshift egg washi paper towel. Sprinkle a little bit on the chicken. And just hit that dough one more time. Let's lay this over top. Now again, you're not looking for the most pristine, form-fitting spandex yoga pant of a dough to go on your bird. The only time you need it to look super perfect is if you're going to a restaurant and you pay for them to do things like this. This in general is just going to impress friends that you have around your house. So go ahead, tuck it in. All right, use the sides of your hands to adhere that dough to the other one. All right. You got a little room right there. And then you can kind of feel around and press that dough around where the legs are, the breast and the arms.
Leanne said, great instruction sheet. She made it ahead of time because they like to eat at 6:30. It's coming out of the oven.
All right, now we're going to take the base of this, and we're just going to kind of curl it in. Let's keep this bird safe. And then if it's a little too much, go ahead and trim. Again, I mean, the instruction sheet, everything should be pretty easy. I mean, a lot of the food I do, and again, this is now working on opening up Main Street Provisions. If you guys have not heard yet, then I don't know what you're doing. But Kim Owens, the owner, and myself are working on Main Street Provisions opening downtown, and it's really about this kind of style of food. It's a lot of attention put into the ingredients where we source them. It's a lot of attention put into the prep. But it's food that you would have on a Sunday evening. You know, mom or dad would pull out the nice china, the nice linens. And that's really what I think is most important right now as far as a meal goes. You know, not looking to have my mind changed on how the world works or the way the universe is shaped. I just want a solid meal with friends, with loved ones, and good health. So everything should be nice and sealed around, right? If you see any cracks or anything forming like this, we can use bits of the dough and a little bit of egg wash to kind of wipe and press in there. If your dough, if you worked it a lot and it looks like porous concrete or, prepubescent teenager, going through some things, all those little cracks, go ahead and sprinkle some flour over the top and then a little water in your hands and just kind of rub it. Kind of like you're working pottery, making it nice and smooth. So our bird should be nice and sealed up. Now, it's going to go in the oven at 350 degrees. And we're going to let it go for about an hour. I put on there an hour to 20 minutes. This is all going to vary a bit depending on your oven. If you have convection, dead air. The dead air oven, you definitely want to go closer to an hour and 20. If it's a convection, an hour or so is going to be okay. But here's the point. When you bake a bird, when you roast a bird, when you cook a bird, they always teach you that you want to cook it to 165 degrees. That's not to say that you should cook it to 165 degrees in the oven and then pull it out, because it keeps cooking. It has so much heat in the bones and the body, it keeps going. So all we need is for this bird to hit 165 degrees for a matter of seconds. So what we want is to cook this thing closer to like 150 degrees, 155, and pull it out and let it rest. That's what creates a juicy bird, a tender bird, something not dead like you're normally seeing at friends' houses. And that's kind of the big difference maker. Now, you're going to see a little more pink near the bone. Again, that's not going to kill you. That just means you haven't cooked this thing to death. You gently raise the temperature on the bird instead of overdoing it. So really, cooking a good bird is just about knowing when to pull it out and understanding cooking temperatures and times, right? So we're going to throw this in the oven, if you would, Jolene. And then we're going to go ahead and clean up this salmonella-covered mess that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll get the knife out. Huh? Oh my God.
So as we're cleaning up and getting set, the next thing you guys are going to do, we're going to move into the peel off. All right. So look at your list that we gave you, put it together. Now I'm going to tell you there's an Easter egg on this, because it says in the ingredients that there's garlic, but it's in the cooking. I didn't put in the recipe. I was going to put garlic in there, and then I decided not to, but I forgot to add my material, much like a lot of my college degree. I didn't proofread. So there's no garlic in there for the peel off. So if you're still looking for it, this has been a fun game of chef messing with you. All right. This is probably the most entertaining bit of this whole video, is watching somebody clean. Which I guess in 2020 is kind of a turn on. Be like, wow, look how he sanitizes. That guy really knows, physical debris and bacteria. Don't get your wine.
It's in the back.
All right.
Yes. Jared brought this over.
Now, guys, gals, whoever you are in this life, the thems, the theys, and all the awesome people, we are moving on to the peel off. So you're going to need to move back to the stove. you're going to get whatever pot you choose to cook this rice in. This is an acid crusette. Expensive, awesome, but a general pot from Costco is going to work too. You have your 2 cups of herbs. You have your dried noodles, your Carolina gold rice, chicken stock, a shot of something.
Mezcal.
Mezcal. Delicious.
Thank you, Jared.
Jared, who also, besides importing great alcohols, owns Festa Coffee Shop downtown, Festa Roasters. It's my go-to as a parent. 7 a.m., I've already put my app order in. I'm driving there. I get out of the car. It's lovely. Finally, we have the baggie with butter and onions. All right, so pilaf, French rice dish. This is a little bit about cooking technique, onions, butter, rice being toasted, and how you bring the rice up to temp. But the one we're doing here is actually more based off my grandma Pat. Grandma's not from the French side. She is definitely still from a butter side of the family. And her pilaf growing up was always extremely rich. It was like the best rice dish. And she still lies today about how much butter she puts in it. She claims there's no like butter added. My sister Nicole and I feel like that's a bold-faced lie. But whatever she wants to tell herself, the woman's like 90 and still with us, and I feel like butter is a big part of that. So get your flame on. Want to go to a low heat. Again, depending on what kind of pans you guys use, will all depend on like, you know, the heat interaction, how fast it gets hot, how hot it gets. The first part of this is a gentle cooking process, right? So take your big old lump of butter, right? Toss that in there. Now, what we're doing is we're going to melt the butter. We're going to cook down these onions, and then we're going to toast the rice and noodles together. Now, a lot of like normal recipes, you don't add the noodles. I don't know culture why or where that came from. I just know that 2 of my grandmothers did it. And if you can add carbs into carbs and then put carbs on top of that and live to be really old, I mean, whatever, I'm doing it. Some kind of spoon. So it's funny having 2 kids now and thinking about how my grandparents cooked or did not cook or whatever they did. I think about these dishes, about the things that I'm passing down. And as a chef, like, you know, the things I learn and I do at home. When I cook at home, I cook very much like I do in the restaurant. But I kind of try to think about like, what were these things growing up that were the Sunday specials that were normal that I can teach my son or my daughter, you know, so when they go off in the world, they can actually make food for themselves. And stuff like this pilaf, of course, anything with chicken, because my mother was all about that big old bag of chicken breasts from Costco. So, I mean, beginning of the week could be chicken broccoli casserole, then chicken noodle casserole, then chicken casserole. So it was all about, you know, diversity of trying to work with ingredients. When people ask me about my cooking and my style, there's definitely like an influence of my heritage, which I don't even really recognize. Because when I was an a-hole teenager, I was not about like, oh, what's my French background, Mom? I was like, freedom fries, I'm American. And then I grew up and realized I was being an asshole. So I missed out on a lot of that. But I had a great French community around me. And either when I taught at the Art Institute, when I worked in restaurants, or just living here in Vegas especially, had a great community. And it got me really interested into that cooking and everything that we did. So that was like one side of the influence. And then of course the chefs that I worked through. But when it came to people asking, like, how do you come up with ideas and stressful situations or things go bad, I think the biggest part of my cooking is my mother. So butter melted, onions in, and now we're just gonna let go with a little bit of a slower process to work these onions down. We want them to have a little bit of color, to be nice and soft. Right? The difference between sweating and sauteing: saute, golden brown, we develop sugars. Sweating, translucent, we move it more often, which is like the big thing for everybody in the kitchen. They move a lot of things. You want to tie their hands down. I know my wife especially is like, I have to stir the pot. And I was like, no, if you just let it alone. And then I turn my back and she's like, I don't know what it is with people, but they need to stir. Like I said, when it came to be on things like being on Chopped or stuff like that, I think what gave me the biggest advantage was that over the years, I watched my mom cook, full family meals for me and my two sisters, and her out of an electric wok, with nothing but what was inside of an igloo cooler at times. So that woman, maybe that goes back to her grandfather and stuff coming here, is about, working with what you have, about being able to be diverse and switch things up. And work under pressure. But I think that's what makes a lot of these dishes great. Okay. If you guys have any questions along the way, whether it be about this meal, cooking tips, anything, go ahead, type them in the comments. Jolene's over here ready to tell me all about it. All right. Now, we're going to shift some of the space over here. So as these are cooking down, really the other thing that makes us so quick in the kitchen, and you wonder why in a restaurant we can accomplish so much cooking in such a small period of time, and you're like, it took my mom like an entire day to make Thanksgiving dinner. One, it might have been because she didn't want to be around you all day. Two, it was about multitasking. It was trying to do like 4, 5, 10 things at once. So we are going to work on the salad while these onions cook down. Right? So you should have a container of olives, container of toasted sunflower and pumpkin seeds. I love seeds. I think they add great crunch. They add a fattiness. If you get them salted, then they add like a nice salted note to it. The olives do that for us too. They add a salinity. Hard-boiled eggs. This is the vinaigrette for the dressing. You're going to want to shake that up. This is blended oil. I don't always use like 100% olive oil or anything like that because it can be really strong and it takes over the lettuce, the greens. Dressing and everything, whether it's a cream-based dressing, a vinaigrette, it should be about complementing everything that's in the salad. It should be about complementing the lettuce so that a farmer that gives you an amazing bag of mixed greens isn't overlooked for their work because you slap 20,000 pounds of ranch on it. I grew up on ranch. It's not a bad thing, but just a suggestion. So in here is blended oil, apple cider vinegar, a lot of different blended herbs, a little bit of garlic. Super simple. The ratio is not the same typically for vinaigrette. I like it to be a little thinner, and then I thicken it with how much herbs and garlic I put in there.
Leanne said her chicken is fucking delicious.
Leanne's chicken is fucking delicious, guys. Leanne's one of our guests out there. I love her. She supports everything I do. But she will also tell you to your face if something sucks. So thanks for saying it was good. The bag of mixed greens. Now this is a salad that we're actually, the lettuce mix is going to be a little different, but this is actually a salad that's going to be on at Main Street Provisions. And if you see it, it's going to be called For Ernie's Birds. And I'm going to explain why to you here. as we make this salad. The first thing I want you to do is open up your hard-boiled eggs. So Ernie Shea, my grandfather, was like a jack of all trades. He had a tool shed that he, did woodworking in. If you needed him to build a bridge, he could probably do it out of that shed. He was a gardener, a plumber. He spent years growing up, working in convenience stores, liquor stores, going from Alameda, California, down to Fresno, where I was actually born. It's not something I normally admit, but Fresno, California. But Grandpa Ernie did everything. As you can see, we're gonna give a little stir. So if you notice, I let a lot of time lapse before I ever touch the onions. And we want to start from the edge and work them back towards the center, because the edge where it cups in there is where a lot of onions and everything and fat are going to get trapped. So we want to make sure to bring them in. So Grandpa Ernie did everything. The guy walked around, he had work boots, blue jeans, and some kind of t-shirt tucked into his belt. He had a measuring tape and a pencil at all times. But I just remember him for the fact that this guy did it all. And for other people. He would mow his neighbors' lawns if they were too old, and in between mowing his own lawn. The guy drove this El Camino. He had these black rimmed glasses. It was like that quintessential, old American dude who was, second generation. But he had an aviary in his backyard, cockatiels, finches. He raised all these birds, and it was impressive. I mean, there had to be hundreds of birds in this thing. And every morning, all right, we're going to take our hard-boiled eggs, and we're just going to kind of quarter them. I'm going to make some room. Billy's going to bring in the camera a little closer so you guys can see. So I quartered these.
When he says camera, he means computer.
I quartered these, and then we're just going to lightly chop them up. I'm not trying to decimate the yolks. I want them to still kind of be part of the salad, so you don't want them to disappear. So all of your eggs, you're going to quarter like that, and then just lightly cut through. All right, and then move to the edge. All right, being gentle. So you have this aviary of birds, and you could generally just go out there and just throw a bunch of seed and bird feed on the ground and not give a shit. I've seen people do it. And yet, this guy who woke up, I don't know how early, but easily 5 o'clock, if not 4:30 in the morning, woke up every morning to go jogging. He woke up every morning to take care of the house, the birds, and everything. But one of the things was I would wake up as a young kid, and I could hear him. And he was in the kitchen by the sink, and he had a metal bowl, and he had it filled with chopped egg. There were seeds, lettuce, general things that he had, some other vegetables that he would mix up in this bowl. Now I want you to grab your olives. We've drained most of the liquid out, but we're going to go ahead and toss these on the board. We're just going to lightly chop these up. So these were all the things I could watch him like. He'd lightly chop up these vegetables, this egg, this lettuce, and then he'd go feed the birds. And it just baffled me. I was like, why don't you just toss some seed out there? But this was like a thing of him taking care of these birds, caring for them, that I thought was so impressive. In that, as a young kid, when I was in 6th grade when he passed away. So there's not a tons of memories, but this one, as a young kid at his house, is something that stuck in forever. So we have our olives. We're going to push those up there. Now we like a nice mix of olives. If you don't like a particular olive, go ahead, use whatever really fits your palate. But I like to have a variety: Niçoise, green olives, black olives. This way we get a nice flavor profile, a little bit different texture, definitely different salinity. All right. So back to our onions. All right, so you can see the butter starting to brown a little bit. The onions are shrinking up. They're getting a little golden. That's perfect. All right, so now we're going to skip back to the rice for a second. So you need your rice cup and you need your dried noodles. And we're going to toss them in, sprinkle them in. Give a little bit of stir on the noodles.
Kelly, that I'm not making a cake.
All right. And you're just going to let those toast just for like 30 seconds or so. Build flavor. Toasting, it's all about layering flavors, what we do. Instead of just getting the straightforward, we want to create a crust. We want to create sugars. We want to create kind of little burnt notes. So we're going to let that cook for just a few seconds longer. In between these moments when you're going from onions to noodles to rice, and you find yourself in small seconds of time, it's perfect time. Sure. Apparently at some point a chive fell in my wine. That's cool. Here. Best part is my boss is behind the computer watching this. Trying to hope she understands that this is my cooking style. Just kidding. It's not okay to be drunk at work, everybody. Rice goes in.
This is not at work. This is
True. This is at Jolene's house. Much like COVID, anything goes. This is, apocalypse rules right now. All right. So use a spoon. Spatula is good. Be very gentle because you're trying to toast the rice. You're trying to move it around. You're not trying to sever it. You're not trying to break it up. So just gentle move around. So within that butter, right, you can get it to toast a little bit. All right, so we're gonna give one more stir. Remember, going from the edge, working yourself in, right? Churning it over. That way fresh rice gets a chance to toast. And then leveling it out. Now,
They just asked if they can buy dressing at Main Street Division when it opens.
can you buy dressing at Main Street Provisions when it opens? Wait for the answer?
sure.
Sure. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. No, we won't. All right, so onions are a little golden. The noodles are toasted. Now the rice has had a chance to toast in the butter. It is not the same if you do butter or olive oil. It's a completely different flavor profile toasting because those milk solids begin to cook, caramelize. So the rice is not going to taste the same. Not to say it's not good. Use olive oil. I do it too. It's delicious. But for grandma style, it's more about just straightforward dairy fat. All right, now we're going to take our chicken stock. You may not need all of this. You may need that and more.
Finish off.
Yeah. So we're going to pour in. Now, this is going to help deglaze the pan. That means hear that steam, that's releasing little bits of golden brown pieces that have touched the bottom there.
Oh, you used all of it.
Well, I used all of it because with my eyeballs, I could tell I needed that much. But when you get all that in, give it a stir. Make sure it flattens back out. Now, what you want is, and only do this with the closest of friends and family members in these times, but using that inch on your finger,
No!
if you want, touch the tip of your finger to that rice, and if the water level hits that first ring, then you're good. This is something that when I did it one time in a restaurant, my buddy Kai Vu, Vietnamese chef here in town, District 1, Mordeo, he goes, Justin, what are you doing? That's so Asian of you. And I remember when I was in college, my good buddy Hao was another Vietnamese friend. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm measuring out water for the rice. And he's like, right here. That's what you need. So
Clean finger.
you can touch it, or you can use a spoon and feel where the rice hits, right? And just be gentle with it.
Half inch.
And you want it to be, again, an inch above. So we're going to get a little bit more water. And I'm going to add it in. All right. And then again, make sure the rice and everything is nice and even. That way you don't have this tower of rice cooking in one spot and then the rest of it sitting in like a low. So this is going to turn to mush, and then the top section is going to be undercooked and disgusting. So, what you want to do is just bring that up to a simmer, all right? So you can see like little bubbles start going, some of that steam come off. Kind of in this method with pilaf, we're trying to bring the heat up, and then we're going to bring it back down before we cover it up and cook it. Back to the salad. Mixing bowl that you should have had. If you don't, you get enough for the day. That's okay. Doesn't mean you're not a good person. So we got a little bit of bubbles going. So we're going to turn this down to a low heat. Now, if you're working on a flame, again, this is just a little bit of that flame showing on there to keep the rice going. If you're working on an electric top, it's completely different, right? So you're dealing anywhere from, like the one I'm looking at now, has low to high 1 to 9. So you're looking more like a 2. If you live in some weird houses, which I've seen, you have like a 1 to 5, and it's like, I don't know what's low on that. But you want a nice, gentle heat, so you have the water and everything just slowly cooking so it doesn't evaporate too quickly. And then we're going to cover it up. Then we're going to put our super dangerous hot pot a little closer to the edge. And now we're going to get back to our salad. Go ahead and take your greens. Depending on how many people you have, you can reserve some of these. If you're going for big salad eating, and put the whole bag. The 8 ounces of dressing you have should be plenty for this. Again, you're looking to lightly dress. You're not looking to overflood the greens. Dressing should be a complement, never like the focal point. If it's the focal point, like it was for me from ages, 2 to 25, then you just douse everything in a thick dressing and pretend that you eat vegetables. Literally, like growing up, I ate like no vegetables. The closest I got to a tomato, at like 5, I ate tomatoes like an apple. Then I changed, and the closest I got to a tomato was ketchup. Cooked carrots were terrible. Only preceded by broccoli, which I only got myself out of some ass whoopings as a kid when the first President Bush claimed that he didn't eat broccoli. So I told my mom, if the president doesn't eat broccoli, I don't eat broccoli. And that saved me for a little while. She talked about it all the time, and she's still, like, my sister and my mom always remember, like, did you eat your vegetables, Justin? I was like, I'm 38. I eat a lot of vegetables. Somehow I got known for cooking carrots. That's the weird thing. And actually, if
Harissa carrots.
Harissa carrots. But if some of the vegan crowds out there, I've had a great following of vegan people. So really make sure to shake up that dressing and just lightly dress, like just use half the dressing at most. Remember, you can always add more, you can't take away. I know you're going to try and say, but I can add more lettuce, but that's a dumb statement, so stop it. Just add a little bit, then churn the greens.
Mix with your hands.
Yeah, mix with your hands. If you don't have gloves, that's fine. Wash them, but mix with your hands. it's such better work. You're not going to damage the greens and everything as much. You're going to understand how things are dressed. You can understand like how thick the dressing is by how it looks on your hands. And then later on, eat your salad with your hands, because that's how I do it. And my son. I'm a tactile person. I love eating my food. One of my favorite Caesars in this city is the Caesar salad at Esther's Kitchen downtown. And I sit in that beautiful restaurant, and James knows it, and I eat that salad with my hands, and I feel good about it. And now my 3-year-old does the same. So taking a look at it, right? You want the lettuce just to have a beautiful sheen. Again, you shouldn't pick it up and have dressing drop off. It should be just nice and coated. I'm going to add just a little bit more of this. Stir it up. So I'm actually left with about 2 ounces in there. Yeah. Anthony Jameson
Excuse me.
is riling up the dogs. Go ahead, take your olives. We're just going to sprinkle some in. We're going to do the same with the hard-boiled egg. And then pop open your seeds. Again, you're sprinkling half of all of this in. It's about building a salad. When you build a salad, you have to understand the weight of things and how it's going to affect. So when you go to restaurants and they're like, "How does the salad look so beautiful?" It's because we've layered it. We've given it time for make sure it goes out quickly, but that the ingredients aren't all put on right away. So we've got all that mixed in there. This way, later on, as you begin to eat, you still get the bites throughout the salad. But we reserved some, so we're going to do a nice, beautiful garnish of it in. So when you go to plate a salad, just don't dump and throw. You have to understand that when you pull lettuce out, things get left behind. So grab some out. Make sure we scoop up some eggs, some olives, like really feel for it. Get in there. So I built like half of it in. I'm gonna add a little bit more olive, a little bit more of the egg, and more of the seed. Again, this salad is really based off of my grandfather, Ernie, feeding his birds in the morning. And I think when you ask how do chefs come up with ideas, that it comes up from everything. It comes up from going hiking. It comes up from sitting at a stoplight. It comes from watching your grandparents take care of, creatures and treating them that they're the most important thing in the room. So we got the beautiful tower of lettuce now. And then we can go ahead and gently garnish with the rest of what we got. If you don't want tons of seeds, again, you can always back off and change the ratios on this. But it all has a very special point in the salad. Olives add salinity. All of this adds texture, but olives add salinity. The hard-boiled eggs add fat. The seeds add a great crunch along with their own fat. And then we're just going to sprinkle them on. And I'm left over with a few seeds. Think of that as a gift. So, a little bit of dressing, a little bit of seeds left. So, that's our salad, everybody. That's for Ernie's birds. Ernie Shea, my grandfather. Amazing man.
We got called out for not drinking chartreuse because we were drinking mezcal and it is Bastille Day.
Oh,
So Jameson brought a bottle of chartreuse over, or actually the end of it, because apparently he drinks this a lot. So I'll give you a little nip
All
there.
right, we're going chartreuse, everybody, for Bastille Day for the family. Thank you.
Jameson, you want to jump
Yeah,
in for a
where's
little
Anthony
cheers?
Jameson? I want him behind the screen with me. Again, friends with bartenders, bar owners, general good people. We're gonna get the old Wile E. Coyote to come around here.
Go the other way, babe.
Yeah. I want you to end this.
I'll just put my arm in.
All right, let's take a cheers, everybody, while we wait for
Cheers,
Is it
everyone.
good?
Thank you.
Happy Bastille Day.
Happy Bastille Day.
Oh, it's so good. It's good to have friends. It hits your lips. It's so good. Okay, so we have our salad done. We're gonna set that to the side. Let's go ahead and give our area another little clean. We're gonna use our cutting board again, so make sure to keep it with us.
Do you want a new one? Wow. 18 minutes.
So everybody, of course, as we wait for our rice to finish cooking here,
Should we look at it?
still
Okay.
has some time.
Okay.
It's going to take about 20 minutes or so for that to happen. Now, in the true form of TV cooking magic, we do have a stunt bird that we did earlier. Thank you, Vanda. So this is a bird that we did earlier. You should hear like that crust gets nice and hard. We pulled this out, we cooked this up. So we cooked this one only for an hour to kind of let it set. But we want to give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on while we wait for the other bird to cook. What you need is a serrated knife to make it through this, or a hammer, or the bottom of your wine bottle. If you come in close, you can kind of see. It's all about like if you want to present this within the dough, or if you just want to shatter it and pull it out. But you can kind of hear as we cut through this thing, spin it around. Don't cut too deep because you don't want to go all the way into the bird. Think of it in that moment of what is it like? The movie Hannibal? Is it like the second kind of like Silence of the Lambs kind of influence when he's like at the dinner? He pulls the cap off the gentleman. I've spent too much time on Netflix, folks, and listening to murder mysteries with my wife. Okay, so we've cut through, and that, as you can see, right, is a nice salt dough. Is our bird trapping this down. The cool thing is, if you want, you can cut this back a little bit, and that's how you can present it at the table. I suggest like a little olive oil over the top, salt, pepper, and show it off. But then from there, bring it back in the kitchen to now. The other part of this is to show you guys how to break your chicken down. Get rid of the rest of this crust.
Oh my God. Hanging in there.
See? Now, the other part people become intimidated about is carving birds. Great thing is duck, turkey, chicken, they're all very similar, so just fine. But remember to pop that string off. There's something weird happening behind it. So we make sure to take the string off. We don't want to end up having that in anybody's meal. Now, where you want to start is right in between the legs, right, and the breast. And you just want to carve back that skin. Right. So this way we can pull the legs apart, separate them, and then we're just going to lightly pop them out of their joints. And this is going to create a base so we can carve the top. Just be a little bit easier for us. That way it doesn't wobble all around. Now, right along here, you're going to feel that cartilage in the bird where it separates the two breasts. And you're just going to pick a side and go right into it. And right onto the other side. Now, since the bird's cooked, you can kind of peel it back and then just use the tip of your blade and follow that rib cage. And then just lightly peel back the breast. And then you're going to hear a bone noise. That's where the wing and everything is attaching. So if you pull the breast back, you're going to see right in there where it connects that joint. So we're just going to push through. Yes, quick question.
Can we cut the crust to brown the skin?
Yeah, if you, again, somebody asked if you want to cut the crust off and you want to brown the skin. Because again, this has been inside, been steaming. So yeah, you get that pale skin. So if you want to lightly rub that with some oil, a little bit of butter, you can definitely put it back in the oven and flash it. I would say no more than a few minutes. Remember, you've cooked this most of the way. So if you plan to do that, definitely hit closer to like 45 minutes or an hour instead of an hour 20. That way you don't overcook the bird. But we have, at this point, the skin's kind of rendered down and stuff, so you just don't want to destroy it. So like we said, there's that little joint there. We push through, and now we have our breast apart. So we have a full breast and wing. We're going to turn the bird. We're going to keep the legs on both sides, so it makes it easy. And then you're just going to do the same thing towards you. And you're going to go on the other side of the wishbone, so you're going to kind of carve down. So if you're wondering where the wishbone is, right around that collar, all right? So we're going to use that tip, carve back.
Grab us some wine glasses. I don't think it's that all. Someone asked if you were saving the wine for dinner and having champagne right now. But I feel like you've been drinking the wine.
I've been drinking the wine. Yes, I did not drink champagne first. I am a huge champagne fan. I like to finish with champagne. You know, it's like I like to start with red wine. That's kind of like the making out stage. Champagne is like full blown like love making. So that's where I go in the French meal. So now, if you look, we have stayed real close to the bone. All right, carved it down. You see that lemon still in there. Save this lemon because you can cut it in half and squeeze and dress your chicken with it. All right, so all of this is going to play parts again. So don't just get rid of stuff. That's crazy. This bird had a life. It was around. Somebody raised it. It gave itself up for you, whether or not you asked it to. So do everything you can. So kind of hold the body, the carcass with your knife. Pop that leg so the joint comes out, and then real close, keep that blade towards the body to preserve as much of the thigh. Same thing on this other side. So we got a little bit of that bone right there. Now, this carcass, this is what those of you that saved for the chicken stock kit, what I want you to keep around. Those of you that didn't get the chicken stock kit, keep it around, use it. All right, we're gonna make stock with that. So this right here is your 4-piece chicken, all right? You got the 2 breasts, you got the legs right here. If you wanna split this up, again, the great thing about chicken is it kind of tells you about itself, about where to cut. So when you split like this, there's a section that comes up and you can just slide your knife through. So now you have your drum and you have thigh. Same with this. drum, and thigh. And you can break this down, the breast in half a little bit more, but that's our bird right there. And again, if you want to finish this with a little bit of like fleur de sal, cracked pepper, olive oil, lemon juice, herbs, perfect. But for the summer heat and everything right now, I think just a little bit of lemon juice, olive oil is perfect. It's just a very gentle bird. If you, probably hard to see those guys right here, but we have a little bit of like pinkness here, and that's perfectly fine. Don't freak out. That pinkness is retained again by that gentle cooking process. So that is our bird. All right, I'm gonna give my hands a wash.
I'm killing it. I mean, solid 740.
All right. Now for a little of your add-ons. We did have, if you did the chicken stock, again, I got you chicken feet. I got you a mix of bay leaves, parsley, thyme, or parsley, tarragon, and peppercorns. And then a bag of mirepoix. All right, so we have onions, carrots, and celery. This is like a traditional base for making stocks and sauces. All of this is going to go with that carcass that we pulled off the bird. You know, this is something where you make your own stocks at home that are going to have a lot more body, a lot more nutrition, especially those people that are talking about making bone broths at home. This is what you really want to be doing. It's great to do in a crock pot because you can set it, forget it, walk away. I do it on the stovetop. My wife has a little freak out. She thinks we're going to catch the house on fire and burn in our sleep. I like to live on the edge. I'm crazy like that. But what you want to do with the chicken feet is you're going to put these in some cold water and you're going to bring them to a boil and let them simmer really hard for a few minutes. You're going to see a lot of like just junk come off, foam and just grittiness. That's that first blanch that we want to give to kind of pull out those impurities. You have to start with cold water because it helps pull out impurities. It helps pull out blood and all that. So once you do that, then you're going to trash that water, and then you're going to put those chicken feet with your carcass, your pouch of herbs, and your veggies into a crock pot or a pot. And you want to just let that water submerge. You want to come about an inch above everything, and then let it cook really slow overnight. Having a good 12 hours to cook is going to pull out a lot of that collagen, a lot of that gelatin from everything, and get the most nutrition. Things like beef bones and stuff like that, they're going to need a lot more time, but they're going to give you a lot more of that gelatin and collagen that you're looking for. But the chicken flavor, if you see them more darker, sometimes more darker sometimes. What am I talking about? That's because they've roasted the bones. Roasted the bones, a little bit of tomato paste, that gives like the dark stocks that you're looking at. So that's a whole nother level. But if you're making it at home, remember blanch these first in boiling water, get rid of the nasties, then put herbs, veggies, feet, and the carcass all in a pot together. All right, I'm gonna give a quick check to our rice.
Chef, Brian would like to know if you can clarify the skin browning again. How long?
The skin browning again. So if you want to brown the skin, again, you're going to put out, it's going to happen quickly because since you've already cooked this, a lot of the fat within the skin and the bird has cooked away, so it's not going to take as long. So if you have it in the oven, you know, I'd say click it up to like 400, 425, and just put it in there. It's just going to take a couple minutes to really start to see that brown. But just remember, it's not going to be perfectly even because you've already kind of steam to this. So there's going to be little sections of the bird that aren't going to be cooked exactly the same as when you just roast it straight off. If you want to do it in broiler, be careful. I would say low broil, and again, just a few minutes. But you're going to want to turn it.
And make chicken skin.
Can you save the skin and make chicken skins? That's a good fatty question. I love it. Yeah, if you want to peel all the skin off this and have some kind of rich kid delight, pull the skin off because it's been rendered down like that. And you've got a lot of fat moisture. Lay it out flat. Lay this peel the skin off. Lay it out. I'm going to show you.
We're gonna do it.
So peel that off. So you got a nice little sailboat sail of chicken skin. Jolie, you want to bring it in close?
Slacking.
So see how it lays nice and flat? All right. Let this sit in your fridge overnight. Lay this on a sheet tray with no grate, just flat. And then put some more like parchment wax paper or another tray on top of it just to like keep them flat. Let them dry out a little bit more. And then, yeah, you can fry them. But you really want to make sure that as much moisture as possible has been pulled out of those. Definitely.
Done.
You can lay that right back on top.
Sorry, Ethel.
Now, for your rice, to get ready for it, we have another serving bowl. But I gave you these 2 pouches of herbs. Again, I'm a big herb nut, especially in summertime. But I think like my real love of herbs comes from a lot of like Thai, Vietnamese, Southeast Asian cuisine. I love that mint. I love that fresh herbs, the basils, all that. I just think it's like a refreshing pop, and it also helps like cleanse the palate. So I love to have these around and add them into salads, rice dishes. I mean, that's popular through several cultures, but I think it really changes the whole meal for you. So go ahead, take out one. You want to work in small batches because you don't want to ruin anything. But bring it together nice and tight. I'll churn this for you. And then we're just going to do like one pass through to kind of break things up. Make sure your knife is sharp. All right. If you don't have a sharp knife, all you're doing is smashing the cell walls. It's going to brown easier. You're just going to squish and destroy the herb. This, a nice clean cut. One cut. Yeah, so it's still pretty broken up. That's your parsley and your chives. You toss that in the bowl. And now we have the mint and chives. This we can break down just a little bit more. If you don't like the big mint leaves, really kind of squeeze that together. And then we're going to shave it, or what's considered a chiffonade. All right. So you guys, some nice shaved herbs. Now this, if you read in your packet, this is what we're going to toss with the rice, with the pilaf once it comes out. You don't have to do it, but I suggest it. I just think it makes a meal, especially with the chicken, so much cleaner, so much more interesting.
This is the most in-depth cooking kit so far. In a good way. Just but like the most
Educational.
yeah.
We'll give our rice a little check. We're just about there. You want to try and take the grain of rice and get like a single grain in your teeth and bite through it, and it should just have a little pop left. That's when you want to pull off the flame. because it's going to rest for a minute. You're going to fluff it. You want to make sure not to like cook it much more than that, because that's how you're going to end up with a pile of mush, and it's going to be unpleasant. We still want this to have some body, some texture to it.
1 hour in the oven, Chad.
Our chicken has been in the oven for 1 hour. The one we started with you. Good job. Awesome, guys. So really, we're just waiting for the rice to finish. But you saw how we have the chicken put together. You saw how we did the salad. I'm going to show you one more thing here. For those that...
Just discarding this? Or you using this for a spot?
Oh, you can discard it. If you have the cheese at home, go ahead and add it with your bread. The real nice baguettes that we got. Toss that bread back in the oven. Let it go for about 5-10 minutes. You want to just have a nice crust back on it. And then your grass-fed butter, again, you want this to be room temp, so let it sit out for a while. The salt, radishes. Go ahead and drain these radishes. Fresh radishes are great because they add a little bit of spice, texture, but that with a bit of baguette, country bread is great. The fleur de salt, the sea salt. Again, you can use that for your chicken as well. Or the grass-fed butter. I usually use Kerrygold at home. There's a lot of U.S. brands. Grass-fed butter is much more yellow. It has more body to it. Saw that person just swipe in. It's what butter should be. I went to Tasmania a year and a half ago and had some of the best grass-fed butter of my life. It was such an interesting change. And it's incredible, like what we've become used to in the U.S. for butter, and when you have like the original concept, it's texture, it's fat, but it's tons of flavor. So salt, radish, butter, the baguettes with the chicken, and then rice pilaf with herbs, and then Ernie's bird salad is going to be great. Cheese is good, and then boom. I know some of you people out there, actually a lot of you, I was so surprised, a lot of you got foie gras. You're champs, man. You're champs. It
doesn't get old. Not in this house.
You're going to want to let that foie be really cold when you cook it. The reason is because foie gras is such a high fat content that it's just going to disappear, a lot like butter. But you want it to be nice and chilled. And then you want to work with a really hot pan. But the first thing you want to do, and Jolene, if you want to bring the camera over. That piece of foie there, we're going to make some score lines. Now you're just barely going to cut through it. Kind of make nice hash cross sections there on both sides. Now this is going to let it cook through nice, even, quick, and render some of that fat out while not just burning the outside. So you want to have nice hash marks. And then we're going to add
That's a fix salt.
that's a fig salt. That's what
I mean,
she
that's
said.
that's the coarse salt behind you right there. I put some there for you. Yeah.
We're just going to give a good sprinkle of salt. on both sides. Just give that a little bit of time for that salt to settle in. Now, you're going to see a lot of people add pepper right away on anything, steaks, foie, anything they're about to cook. Not the greatest idea. What you want to do is kind of wait, because pepper burns a lot easier in the pan on the fire, and you get more like astringent flavor, more carbon, just really off-putting. So wait to pepper a little bit later, but salt, we definitely want to get on there soon and in stages. So you have a nice piece of foie sitting with salt there. Now to cook this, cast irons are great, all right? But you don't have to do it. A fry pan works good, but you want just a little bit of oil in there, just like a dime drop. And what you're looking for is some smoke to come off the pan, because remember, this is a high heat, so it's quick cook through, because it's only going to take a few minutes to cook a piece of foie. I had known about foie gras for a long time, but I'd never had it until I came to Vegas. And this is like a chef's dream place, because I've never had so much foie and caviar in my life, which is a good and bad thing, because I'm pretty sure I'm slowly dying from it all. But it's not a bad way to go out in life when this is what you have in the fridge. And apparently, since a lot of you bought it, this is not an abnormal thing for you, and I'm proud of you for that fact. If there's a highlight, my mother did make sure to send me that California courts now overruled the foie gras ban, and foie gras is going back on the menus. So, I mean, restaurants are closing, but foie gras is coming back, folks.
Should I use this?
Here. Okay, we're getting close on the rice now. When you lift up the pan, if you see a ton of moisture, but the rice is cooked, well, then you've screwed up. But if it seems like you see the grains all by themselves, give them a try. They should still be, they should be tender. If they're too tough, add a little bit more water to it, and then just cover it up. Make sure to let it move around a little bit, and then let it cook for just 2 to 5 minutes longer. But we're getting pretty close to our finishing point there. Now, the other thing I added in on your guys' thing there is how you want to finish this rice. This is where my sister and I believe Grandma lies, because I think she definitely adds another 4 to 8 ounces of butter into this to really kind of just build that up and make it fatty. And she says that doesn't exist. Do what you want. But a little bit of butter, olive oil to finish is great. Or if you want, just pull it right out of the pot. With the chicken stock and butter that's in there, it's already going to be a nice, rich dish. Jolene's gonna, oh yeah. Butter, salt, radish. That's a pretty good snack, guys. Don't you check? If it's just 2 of you tonight, I hope you guys are having a great meal, great conversation. If it's 4 of you, eat fast, take as much as you can, beat the other people to it. This is a survival for the fittest, folks. I'm going to go show you guys. We just pulled out the other chicken. Straight out the oven. But we're not going to cut it open yet. It still needs about 15 to 20 minutes to rest. Resting is what's going to allow all the juices to disperse. So the whole bird's nice and juicy, not just one section. Or when you cut it, you don't have all that juice run everywhere. Kind of like when you do a steak. You see somebody cut it right away, it just bleeds everywhere. Now, this is going to be a little creamier than just your typical rice coming out of the steamer. But that's because we put a bunch of fat in it. I'm going to scoop some of this in. Great part is you smell like the chicken stock, you smell like the caramelized butter.
Ooh, RPM test for the
It's real life.
And just use a couple spoons, work those herbs through there. Again, because you're not trying to break the rice up, you just want to disperse everything.
Can I?
Yeah, turn the camera.
Oh, are you gonna do it?
Here, turn it over. Foie gras. Hot cast iron, a little bit of smoke. Now hold it down just a little bit, right? That way the steam doesn't push it off the plate. There's your pilaf. Your bread and butter. And just give it a little shove, all right?
How long?
I'm getting there.
That's fine.
Jolene is bossy, folks. Take like a minute and a half. These things cook quick, and again, you just want like a nice kind of medium rare on it. 135, 140 degrees, so it doesn't need to cook long.
Oh.
Nice gentle sear on it. And again, you never want to force, all right? So if you touch it, if you try to bring something up with a spatula, give it a second longer if it's not going to pop up. This isn't your first date. You want to be gentle, romance it, right? Exactly how I explained it to my students in school. Give it a little tilt and just baste it with its own fat.
Wow.
Feel a nice kind of soft center there. And a little bit of finishing salt. It's good for that fat. All right, you guys. So that was Cooking at Home with Chef Justin Hall from Main Street Provisions. That was my heritage dinner, saying Happy Bastille Day to the Shea family, my mom, my grandma, and everybody out there, along with my kids and wife, and hoping that all of you, especially right now, have an amazing dinner together and get a chance to feel comforted and to talk a little bit. So enjoy dinner, guys. Thank you.